I'm going to have all the research directors come back up front, and it's time to answer your questions and thoughts on the organization and ideas for us. Questions? Yes?
For the healthcare director, if the state of Washington couldn't see its way through to universal healthcare, punch to the federal government, won't they come to the same conclusion across for the country as a whole?
The federal government, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Whatever happens in Washington, D.C. is going to be, it's going to be a universal thing. It will take precedent over anything that any individual state does.
No, but what I'm saying is that the state of Washington looked at it and said, this is impossible. It's too much. It's too expensive. We can't afford it. We've got to have something that's watered down, and that's what they came up with. How can the federal government come up with any other conclusion than that?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. They now own banks, they now own insurance companies, they now manufacture automobiles. In this environment, I mean, your point is really well taken, but they literally have the power to do that.
Yeah, any other questions?
For the budget director, people in California yesterday spoke loud and clear to public employees unions. Now, I don't have anything against unions. What can we in Washington learn about if we're losing jobs in this state? Should we draw a conclusion that we should put everyone that's unemployed on the public payroll?
One of the reforms that I'm hoping that there'll be an appetite to consider is on the collective bargaining of the state employees, because that was part of what was driving these costs. Now, prior to 2002, state employees negotiated just like every other taxpayer directly with lawmakers. They came and they made their case, they met with them, there were hearings on their compensation packages and on their terms of employment. That changed in 2002 with what they call civil service reform. It was supposed to be a three-legged stool. You have competitive contracting of activities that previously were prohibited by law. The unions would be able to negotiate only with the governors. The legislation was removed from negotiations and other personal service reforms. Unfortunately, what's happened is the competitive contracting has not happened. In fact, the union just had a case heard in Division 2 of the appeals court trying to throw out the contracting law. And the process now for negotiating the contracts, the legislature can only say yes or no. The governor provides them the contract and they vote up and down. But even with this current budget climate, the contract the governor negotiated to, she knew she couldn't do. So she didn't fund that in her budget, and the union sued her for not funding that in their budget. So with all that as the background, hopefully we can go back to where we were prior to 2002 and restore that conversation back to the legislature.
I have a question about education. One of my last things when I was on the school board and on the county council, I served in 2 elected positions at once for about a year, was establishing was then the Steilacoom Virtual Academy, is now the Washington Virtual Academy. We've gone from 25 students to now 2,800, and I see the demand increasing as the technology gets there. How do you think that's going to affect the competition within public schools?
It's going to help a great deal. Actually, Lee on our staff wrote a study about online education and that particular program that you mentioned, as well as a couple of others, and that has been really successful. In fact, there are 19,000 students in the state who are getting their education entirely online. And this is set up through a school district, so it's sponsored by a school district. But who does the actual educating can be a private education company which contracts with the school district. And then just to describe how it works, the student has to have it, well basically the requirements are the student has to have a computer and someone to oversee them or help them, which is always a parent. And then online they have an individual teacher, and that individual student has an education plan that the teacher then helps them with. They do all their assignments online and the internet that way. So that works very well. It does add something of that element of competition. So our research conclusion was online education is successful and should be allowed to grow as an option for families that choose it. But again, you could probably tell 19,000 students out of 1 million. So students learning on computers is never going to be the thing that most people do. It's just not practical for most families. But for those families that do choose it, it works great. And then to close this out, there was an effort in the legislature to trim it back or to limit it, and I don't want to get into too much controversy, but the Education Association does not like online education at all. It does not, for every student that chooses online education, that's some funding goes out of a traditional public school and goes to the online program. I should emphasize that online education is public education. So it's not siphoning dollars out anywhere. It's achieving that policy goal that we talk about, which is the student getting educated? And so if the learning is happening, then the dollars are being spent in the right place. So fortunately, again, from our point of view, that effort to cut back or restrict on online education failed, and so that option will continue, and it's a good choice for families where that makes sense.